the man of the year thought he could abuse me the way he did, and he'd get away with it, and like it wouldn't affect the future of his other kids or his family, but he found out wrong. What he found out was his abuse of me caused me to not cooperate with him. So time was, he saw that I was the best student and so on, the best everything, and I was not going to graduate from Landon. Then, even though I was still the best student, showing it in college and all, graduating early and so on with a good average and getting into graduate school, I wasn't going to become a doctor, and this was making him look bad out in the world. So he was starting to look bad, and also there was this mysterious connection between me and the other kids. You know, like, I went to Landon, and so 4 years got in, okay? And then I dropped out, and suddenly the other brother is not accepted into Landon for some trivial reason. Doesn't have the right foreign language or something. Well, you see, things are not working. I'm mysteriously connected up with the other kids, and my success, their success somehow also depends on mine. So when I stop being successful that's helpful to them, they stop being successful. And so this is a problem for him. And, you know, at first it's not a problem that I don't have a girlfriend and everything, but then I'm a model for the brothers and sisters, so things aren't working out for me. They're not working out for them either. There's this mysterious connection, so everything is not going well for the man of the year because he thought he could get away with this abuse, and he wasn't getting away with it. He was not getting away. And things got worse and worse. He tried to murder me and so on and failed at that. What happened? He comes down with cancer. The Lord struck him down, and he died early. He never saw any grandchildren get born. And his son, his true son marries a Jewish girl. Why? Did he want that? I'm sure he didn't. He hated Jews. But he had to make do with that. Though his favorite son marries a Jew, and he doesn't see the children born, and none of the other kids are doing well. Okay, so now we have a parallel here, all right? The United States secret police thought that they could, you know, run rampant on me, and they could, the way he did. He abused me because he could, and the secret police thought, well, this is not Trump. He doesn't have any money. He doesn't have any friends. We could do whatever we want. And they did that for 10 years. And then they find what? I'm not going to cooperate with them the way I didn't cooperate with the Man of the Year. Man of the Year wanted me to be a doctor and so on. I said no. Okay? Now, these folks, they're somehow going to get me to cooperate with them. They're not going to get that cooperation either. And what's that going to is making them look bad when? If I get cooperation with a country outside the United States, even an ally, I'm not going to have to go to an enemy of the United States. I can go to an ally of the United States and let them in on whatever they need to know to solve these crimes. How's that going to make the United States look? It's going to make them look awful. The way the Man of the Year looked awful as well. But it'll be worse. Why? Because the truth about the Man of the Year is going to come out. And all this abuse is going to come out. And the big mistakes made by the police here, they're going to come out. And what's going to happen? What I said is going to happen, okay? It's going to be worse for the United States than the loss in Vietnam, what happens with me. It's going to be worse. And they brought it on themselves. They have. So there you go. I don't have to do anything. They have condemned themselves by their evil, which is the way it always works out, right? The scripture's full of that, okay? What does the Lord say about somebody like Ahab? Okay, the dogs are going to lick his blood, and so are the birds of the air. And that happens, okay? And that's what is a disgraceful death for that evil man. That's what's going to happen to the United States as well. You've done evil in the sight of the Lord on me. You're not going to get away with it, okay? You think you're going to get my cooperation, you're going to get nothing of the kind. As I said, you are not. I told the man of the year effectively without having to say that. I told him the same thing, and I followed through on it. I'm not like you. I keep my word. So there you go. There's my summary. Perry Smith, Dick Hickok, they murder a family in cold blood, and they think they're going to get away with it because there's no witnesses. Do they get away with it? They don't. Who would think that that crime would get solved on the basis of that one tiny, inconsequential piece of evidence? And yet it did. And now what's going to happen here? You're going to go down by what you've done to me. You get caught with that weapon, it's going to be your ass worldwide. Okay? The United States is going to go down nosedive once the world gets wind of the evil you've committed there. And there's going to be no bringing the United States out of that nosedive. I want that. My life has been destroyed by you evildoers. I didn't want that. You brought that on yourselves by your evil. Just like that family, you said they wanted to be murdered so that those two guys could be hung. How crazy are you going to get? They wanted to be murdered so that those two guys would be hung, huh? You dumbass. They're saying the same thing with what you're saying here. That I wanted the United States to go down. I wanted nothing of the kind. You brought this on yourselves by your evil. So there's the summary. Way back at the beginning of my thoughts about this weapon, I was saying to myself, this was before I heard the Scott Paley report where Scott Paley was claiming that this microwave weapon was a Russian weapon. This was before that. I was saying to myself, it looked to me like this was an American weapon. And I said to myself, America used this weapon on the people down in that embassy in Cuba to get that embassy out of Cuba. They didn't want the embassy there, and they wanted to make it look like the Cubans were doing nefarious things to the people at that embassy. They wanted to make the Cubans look bad and have a reason for getting that embassy out of there. Because they didn't want the embassy there for whatever reason. They didn't want to have diplomatic ties that close with Cuba. Okay, so that's how they did that. They have this secret weapon they were using on their own people. Okay, it was the Americans doing that to their own people. This was my original thought. They wanted to get that embassy out of Cuba that way, and I said, same thing happened in China. They wanted their embassy out of China without having to go through a lot of diplomatic explaining. So they used their own weapon on the embassy in China, and the people there are being harmed, and they're complaining this way and that way about the harm being done to them. And they get the embassy out of there that way, and they impute evil to the Chinese when the Chinese are guiltless, just like the Cubans were. And I'm saying, this is kind of like what happened to me, isn't it? All these evil things were imputed to me, and I was involuntarily committed. It was outrageously absurd. I hadn't done anything to bring this on myself. Nothing. And they did this by making false accusations about me in ways that were believed. Just the way they got those embassies out of Cuba. They falsely accused the Chinese in the People's Republic of China, and they falsely accused the Cubans down in Cuba. And they took those embassies out of there. So, these were my original thoughts, and then later I see this report by Scott Paley saying that he thinks it's the Russians who have this weapon, and that it's carted around in cars. And he's saying members of the secret police of the United States have been harmed by this weapon. Well, I got to say, I don't believe a word out of the mouth of secret police of the United States, not one word. And I would say that, once again, this is another fake out to throw the trail off them, okay? and they might have harmed their own agents or family members of their own agents, worried about being discovered for having this weapon. This is a weapon that's equal to the kind of horrific evil practiced by that monstrous creature named Joseph Mengele, who was conducting horrifically evil medical, so-called medical procedures on Jews. That were unimaginably evil. And somehow the secret police of the United States have become guilty of the same kind of so-called medical procedures with this weapon of theirs that they've used on Americans. And they've been using it on me for over 40 years. And I've collected proofs that they have been. So I'm saying to myself tonight, what if Russia has no such weapon? As Scott Paley was fooled into thinking that they do. Russia has no weapon at all. Like what? Like the secret police tell us that Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction when he has nothing of the kind. He has no weapons of mass destruction, and we go to war on the idea that he does? And this is okay. Well, what if Russia has no directed microwave weapon? Nor does China, nor does Cuba. The Americans have this weapon. My own experience in fighting against this weapon tells me that Americans are operating this weapon. Clear as day that it's happening. And since I've been followed around in a massive way by the secret police of the United States, they have to be aware of the weapon's use on me. So it's clear as day that if they were good and they were anywhere near as knowledgeable as they're supposed to be, they would see how badly I've been made to suffer from this weapon's use on me, and they would intervene. They have not done that. Why? Because they're the ones using the weapon on me. They are. That's why they haven't intervened. I said earlier in other recordings like this one that while I was in graduate school, I walked by the Russian embassy almost every single day. And I gotta say, nobody else did. I was the only one walking by that embassy because I guess whatever reason, no one else was. But I thought, this is America. I don't have any interest in Russia, and I got to get to school, and this is the shortest way. So I walked by the embassy, right in front of it. Now, all these years later, what do we find? We find that Putin is carrying a briefcase like the one I carried by that embassy every day. And it's full of his poop, apparently. And what do I say happened to me in the United States? Well, I'm not going to say more, but there's the connection with that briefcase, which shows what? Putin is aware of me and the outrageous injustice I've suffered here in the United States. He's aware of it. And then what did I also say? I said that China, the People's Republic of China, was sending weather balloons toward the United States that looked like what? They looked like Glenda the Good Witch on her way to Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz a favorite movie of mine that I've referenced over and over again in recordings like this one. And what were the Chinese saying? Once again, the Chinese were saying they were aware of me and how the United States had interfered in the love between me and a Japanese woman. Who is what? Who's a meteorologist. So here come these weather balloons that look like Glenda. And who is the spokesman for the People's Republic of China? A graduate of the George Washington University in Washington, D.C., where I went. This is the spokesperson for the People's Republic of China's foreign affairs. Look where she is and look where I've been here in the United States. We're both graduates of George Washington University. I believe those weather balloons being sent by China were China's awareness as well of the outrageous injustice I have suffered here in the United States. And also what? Well, I wouldn't know what. These folks have known more about me than I've known, probably for a long time. I gotta say that in the solitary confinement I've been in for the past 40 or so years, I have received zero sympathy about this solitary confinement or any of the suffering that I've endured over the course of my lifetime, nor understanding in any way from anyone except from my wife that injustice has been done to me, major injustice. And I'm saying to myself, no one from Russia and no one from the People's Republic of China has ever approached me in any way, ever, to try to manipulate me in some way to do something that, I don't know, would be manipulation. They haven't done that. And I'm saying to myself, is that because they actually have sympathetic feelings for me? That these powers that are at war in a kind of Cold War that's ongoing with the United States, they are aware of the outrageous injustice that I've suffered here in the United States and just how awful it's been. They're aware of the sexual abuse I endured and the abuse everywhere in the United States that I've endured. They're so aware of it that they absolutely have not touched me in any way to try to manipulate me for their ends in the war they're in with the United States. I'm saying, is it possible that this is sympathy from powers like this? Because when I think of the way the secret police have pushed forward all kinds of fakers toward me, phonies of all kinds, to try to manipulate and influence me. They're clearly phonies. They're working with the secret police, which I've rejected out of hand, okay? Knowing, being able to tell these fakes immediately. The metaphor I was using in past recordings like this one was like, you think that you're going to come into this solitary confinement I've been in, like a person in a jail cell is essentially what I've been in. And you're going to walk into that jail cell and act like it's ordinary that you should be there and you're not noticed. My solitary confinement has been so complete. When you come in to try to contact me the way you've been doing, it's that obvious. Okay, you're like someone walking into a jail cell and you're going to act like that's normal. Here I am in your jail cell. Hi, how you doing, buddy? Want to be best friends? Okay, it's that obvious. So with that in mind, I'm saying absolutely no one from China
or Russia has ever done that. Now, I got it. Suddenly, I'm thinking there was a Chinese lady uh, who was a neighbor of ours who did extend friendship to me that, you know, I was just so and so friendly. I'm a married man, so uh, she was a divorced woman, and I had no intention of having any kind of affair or anything else with her. But there was a Chinese lady there from mainland China who was working in the United States. She was working where? At NIH. So who was she? She was probably with the secret police of the United States. That's who she was. Once again, I got to say, I'm clearing the People's Republic of China of pushing her at me. And I'm saying if anybody pushed her at me, it was the secret police again. Another attempt to deceive me. Then why are they doing all this? Well, one reason is that weapon up in the sky that they've been using on me that they don't want anyone to know that they have been using. And I got to say that while that Chinese lady was in that house behind ours, I'm not imputing anything to her. While she was there, that was the time when I was sitting on the edge of our son's bed and reading him stories at night. And it could be that a weapon in that house, directly behind hers, aiming that weapon at me, was hitting me, causing me lung and stomach troubles, which I went to doctors for. This is all documented. But they were also grazing the top of my son's legs. And as they did that, they created dry skin inexplicably on his shins because he was laying on his back listening to the stories that I read to him. And he has this bizarre problem with dry skin that nobody understands. And he has to have his pediatrician prescribing lotions for this bizarre dry skin on the top of his shins. And I'm saying that dry skin was from that weapon being used on me from that house directly behind it. Now, I'm not saying that that woman had anything to do with it. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that weapon was being used from that house. And here's something extra about that woman. Who was her boyfriend? A man in the United States Army, an officer of some kind. Interesting, huh? That the weapon is being used from that house. So I'm gonna clear the People's Republic of China from pushing any kind of fakes at me to abuse me any more than I've been abused. All this abuse has been coming at me from where? The United States of America. It seems that the secret police of the United States are using a tactic of false accusation to wreck the lives of people they don't like for whatever reason. Now, my life got wrecked by false accusations like this way back in 1982. And then what happens, okay? I work incredibly hard at this job I shouldn't be working at all. I mean, I get a job in financial analysis, something I know nothing about. But I'm smart enough to train myself to do this job right there on the job. I'm left in a room. They say, we want this report in 3 or 4 days. I've never had any experience with this kind of thing. I don't know what a liability is. I don't know what an asset is. I know nothing about this kind of thing. And yet I produced that report in 3 to 4 days and went on to work that job to retirement. Now, how did I do that? I used the internet. The internet helped me do that. Otherwise, I would not have been able to do it. Because what is the first thing I did when I was left in that room? I typed into the computer, what is a liability? And I went on from there. Okay? Now, I worked as hard as I could at this job, and as I've said at other times, I was there at work an hour early every single day. I didn't stir from my desk at this place of work, okay? I kept to myself and stayed out of any kind of conflict whatsoever. Now, what happened to me after all those years, 20 years at that place, right before I'm retiring? What did the secret police do? They send 2 agents there to question me right there in my place of work. They come in there and they're going to question me about this post office box that I kept. Why? Well, I'm a creative writer, so I figured since I'm doing my taxes each year and making claims about, I bought a stapler and I bought some staples to go in it and bought some paper to type on and so on. And I'm going to claim that these are business expenses on my tax return for my business. That I ought to have a post box to show that I have a business address, separate from my home address. So I had this post office box in a mailbox store, and I never got a single piece of mail in there, except once in a while I'd get some tax notice from the government, like one piece of mail per year, okay? That's all I got in there, nothing, okay? So I have these secret police agents come in this way to embarrass me at my place of work, just saying that post box is being used illegally somehow for illegal purposes, okay? I'm being accused in this way. Why? Because I got an Italian last name and nobody can figure me out at this place, right? I'm supposed to be hired as a handicapped person, and nobody knows my handicap. Why? I haven't said a word about it in 20 years to anybody. Not one word. So that I was wondering myself, do they actually know what the handicap is that they hired me for? I was thinking maybe they don't. Nevertheless, they can't figure out how I could possibly do the work I'm doing. I'm an outstanding worker. Ask them. I'm there an hour early every day for work for 20 years. I'm completely silent. I'm not a problem. I'm not involved in any office politics whatsoever. Just saying, how is this guy handicapped? We don't get it. So here comes the secret police to throw accusations at me to make it look like I'm somehow hiding in there. I'm a member of organized crime in a hiding at this place of work, which is outrageously absurd, right? But it's a false accusation they're gonna bring against me. Now I'm thinking to myself, I was saying that what if Russia doesn't have any directed microwave weapon at all? Nor does the People's Republic of China, okay? Anybody gonna believe them if they say they don't? Like me, I'm going to say, I don't have anything to do with organized crime. Anybody going to believe me? I got an Italian last name. And nobody can figure me out. Why can't they figure me out? Because I've been falsely accused by the secret police of the United States. That's why. So they're going to accuse Russia and Cuba and the People's Republic of China. And people are going to believe when they say, we don't have any weapon at all. Well, Haven't they already used that card in the cash cab that they're riding? They accused Saddam Hussein of having weapons of mass destruction. He had no such weapons. He said to the American people, I don't have. He was on a late night talk show one night I had on the TV, and he was saying, I don't have any weapons of mass destruction. I don't have these. And I was watching. I said, that man's telling the truth. He doesn't have these weapons of mass destruction. It's clear he doesn't. Well, he didn't have them. He was hung anyway. So you're going to go into a country you're going to make war on a country on the idea that they have weapons of mass destruction. They have no such weapons. You're going to say, this was a bad man anyway, and you've wrecked their country, killed people. You cannot do this kind of thing, okay? So you accused this man of having these weapons he didn't have, and now you're going to say Russia has a directed microwave weapon, and whether they do or not, I wouldn't know. But let's say if they don't have one the way Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction, let me ask again, anybody going to believe Russia here in the United States if it says we have no such weapon? Anybody going to believe that? Okay, I said that our son's problem with dry skin was probably caused by that weapons microwave grazing the top of his shins as it was hitting me in the abdomen, in the lungs, right? What do I have like that happening now? Well, I've been using our attic, our walk-in attic, as a bathroom. I have a trash can in there that I pee into, okay? And I've got all kinds of sheet metal set up there to protect me from this weapon, which I believe is coming from a next-door neighbor's house. Like it was coming from that house back then, and I had no idea at the time that it was. But I'm saying our son has this bizarre dry skin on the top of his legs. What do I see in our attic now? I see that in a line coming from that house next door, the insulation material in our attic there has dried out and frayed. The way the skin on the top of our son's legs dried out, and he had to have medication put on it. I've shown at other times in videos like this one how that insulation material in our attic is bizarrely flaking apart in a line that could be drawn from the neighbor's house over to the place where I'm peeing in the attic. It's clear that once again, those microwaves being shot at me are having an effect in there and leaving evidence, as they did on our son's legs, that they're being used against me. There's the evidence in our attic. Let me get some scientists who can be trusted in here to have a look at this.